established the International Criminal Court and have been a very strong supporter of international law. How could international law be credible and upheld if Russia annexes the land of another country and vetoes any resolution that tries to hold it accountable?
Friday night exposed to this. I'd rather be reading asterisks and objects to my 4-year-old. I sponsored a discussion in the Security Council on the need for us to understand at a much deeper level why we have conflicts and what we need to do to resolve them. If you look at Iraq and Afghanistan and so many of these areas where we've tried to re-stitch a society blown apart by conflict, you realize that everything we're doing is cement-based. We rebuild roads, we rebuild destroyed buildings, we train officials, train the police, train the army. And you've seen this in Afghanistan, billions and billions of dollars spent on rebuilding infrastructure. But no adequate attention is ever paid to what is going on in people's heads, to the deep, divergent historical narratives, and the need to resolve this. And in part, it was born out of the sort of Lincoln experience after the Civil War in this country, that the feeling was the US had to forge forward. It couldn't dwell on all the blood that was spilled in Antietam from one battlefield to another. That the US, this young country, had to put the past behind it. And from that point on, that seemed to be the sort of algorithm, if you will, by which the international community sought to deal with these issues. But it really hasn't worked very well. And the idea is that traumas are so bad that we just apply a healthy dose of amnesia to them, and then you move on, and through a rising income, through a growing sort of GDP, you would be able to overcome all of this. Because this is on an individual experience, this is what we go through. You lose a loved one, and the gift of forgetting helps us overcome sorrow over the longer term. But it doesn't really work, and most of the bitterness and the grievance is still there. And so there's this veneer of human civilization, global civilization, and what has added to this is this sense of globalization that somehow, things are really looking quite pretty. We have investments all over the world, investment houses from all over the world, are investing in countries from all over the world, and we speak very easily to one another. But if you lift the lid off human civilization just a little bit, and you peer inside, what you see is this stewing, boiling sort of set of grievances and hatreds and bigotry and prejudice. And it's just beneath the surface. You don't have to go very far. And if you don't have rules to sort of somehow contain all of this, it erupts here and there. And if you don't have a means of addressing them, the worst conduct of human activity, the most extreme, the most unimaginable, you can't even imagine. We were looking at the report, the Cesar report from Syria the other day. I don't know if any of you have seen these pictures of the people tortured in Syria. Just unbelievable. You can't begin to really explain it. How can people do this? And if we don't have courts and rules, and we don't all abide by them, then I think we have much to remain ashamed about. And then finally, another point, just to make my life even more difficult and to make you even more confused, is even now on the courts, I'm beginning to wonder whether we have it right. Because the thing that occurred to me last year is that people who commit these most terrible crimes, genocide and war crimes and so forth, they're put on trial. So 70 former leaders of the Interahamwe and the of course, Hutu-led government in 1994 have faced justice at the Rwanda tribunal. The amazing thing is that out of all the people who've been convicted since the Second World War, for their participation in the Holocaust and in the Far East and then beyond that. So you go through the entire range. Even when faced with the overwhelming evidence presented before them, hardly a single one has ever expressed remorse for their actions. Not a single, it's amazing to me. Unless there's a plea bargain or a quid pro quo, then suddenly they all happen to take the deal. But that's not the real test. The real test is, out of the thousands and thousands have been told that they've committed the most barbarous, gruesome acts, none of them feel guilty? It's amazing. And so you sort of think, well, what good is it? Then just locking them up if they can't themselves recognize what wrong they've done. And then you realize, but they've rationalized it so to such an extreme that they don't feel they've done anything. They don't feel, and that's the sad thing, that we can rationalize almost everything to ourselves, including the killing of children. And so, where are we with this? We are so far from where we think we are. And I think the sadness about the 20th century, and notwithstanding all the great progress technologically that we've is that we thought we arrived at a point that we had the answers. When you look at much of what's reported in the news, so much of it appears to be conclusion. But in reality, it's all conjecture. We don't know. But the arrogance that we have in thinking that we know, I think, puts us in a very bad spot. So I haven't answered your question.